Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence with me, Anthony Beirudi. Need your help real quick. If you like the videos, hit the thumbs up button right below, and please subscribe to get access to our latest interviews. Hit the subscribe button right there. Also, we'd love to hear from you about our interviews. In the comment section, tell us who you want us to interview or what you thought about the whole thing. Without further ado, enjoy the interview. Very excited today. We're being joined by Fardaws Aimaq. Thank you very much, Fardaws, for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit, where did you grow up? Where'd you get started with basketball? How did it get going?
So I grew up in Richmond, British Columbia. I grew up playing. I didn't start off playing basketball, so I started off playing a couple of different sports, soccer. I started doing MMA when I was young, and a little bit of rec hockey was kind of my thing. As a kid growing up. But once I kind of, started my first year of high school, I started taking basketball much more seriously. Coach Thornburg was somebody who kind of, helped me figure out what I wanted to do in terms of, what sport I wanted to take serious. Because I told him he was explaining to me, it was like, if you want to be really good at a sport, you gotta kind of figure it out, and you can't be doing 6 different sports at one time, because that's kind of what I was doing up until that point. And once I took basketball serious, it just kind of took off, and I did my high school career at Houston, London, played there under him, and then
When was that? When did you start taking it seriously?
So I would say the 8th grade, first year of high school, freshman year of high school. The 8th grade was once I started taking it seriously, and then kind of the other sports that I was doing at the time kind of started, dwindle down a little bit, and then it was eventually just basketball every single day, and that's kind of how it's been since then.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you got lucky because you got a coach who actually is in the gym all the time, right? I mean, one of the big things is getting somebody who's actually going to open the gym, who's going to get other people in there. So I mean, you got a good opportunity there. So now, I happen to have seen you play when you were younger. No disrespect here, but you've come quite a ways.
Thank you. Appreciate
right.
it.
And if you go online and you Google your name, like you got to, you're not the guy you are today is just jacked. We got chiseled muscles and stuff. Fardaws, there's a little bit of a belly there. What kind of, there's been a major impact. So like you obviously left British Columbia a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, and you went down to Mercer.
Yeah.
What kind of hit the switch for you that actually got you taking it like you must be taking this considerably more seriously
definitely.
in recent years.
Definitely. So once I got down there my freshman year, I think my freshman year was still I think it was a big wake-up call, because I had done my year over, my 1 year of prep, and I was, I'm ready for this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I come in as a freshman, and it's still, completely different game. Like the first time I got subbed into a game, I was gassed. I didn't understand how much more quicker, the game was at that level. And that's one thing that kind of hurt me a little bit my freshman year, because, the skill and stuff was there, the size was there. It was more of like understanding, it's a different pace game. And I think just the fact that I didn't understand that at that age kind of, hurt me a little bit my freshman year. But once my coach had got fired and I entered the transfer portal, the sit out year that I had the year after that at Utah Valley, that year was that year was huge for me. I sat out one whole year. The whole dedication to getting stronger, getting quicker, was probably the biggest help for my game. We had done like preseason testing before I got there, and like at the end of the year after my sit out year, like my vertical had gone up almost 7-8 inches. I'm pushing different kind of weight in the weight room. I'm down almost like 15-16 pounds. Just much more cut, much more agile, ready to move. And that's one thing that helped me out a ton, just coming in and sitting out and kind of, getting my mind right, my body right. And then coming in this year, being able to, kind of do Well, I did, because the whole thing a lot of people were telling me was, the Kelly Olynyk blueprint, which is kind of what he did. Just kind of me understanding that, he came in, he struggled, and then he sat out redshirt and just, lived in the weight room and came back and dominated. And that's kind of what I had in my mind. I was just like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this, and then, hopefully it works out for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely 7-8 inches, eh? You added that to your vertical. That's pretty serious.
Yeah.
Obviously you can't get too technical with me on the Zoom, but like, were there specific workouts that you thought had a huge impact on that?
Specific ones, I think just a lot of the biggest thing for me, like surprisingly, was just getting much more flexible. I think that was huge, because once I got, my body moving the right way, then I was able to push, different kinds of weights that I couldn't push before. A lot of it was, agility stuff. We went into different phases. We started off in a bodybuilding phase the first few months, and it was just a lot of basic workouts, but it was just like as heavy as you can, low reps as you can. And then it went into a different phase where it was like, okay, we're gonna change up the weight, but it's as much weight as you can push as fast as you can. And then, just kind of went into, a different phase after that. So my strength coach had, a great program for me. I'm on a different program right now for my last push. So I got, 5-6 months to get ready. And, it's I made that transition last year, and now it's like the next transition I need to make, for me to get to where I want to be. And hopefully, it works out for me again.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, let's actually go back a little bit to your high school career. So you're at Cecil London, you get going in grade 8. How are your teams? How was it like? What was it like? When you're bigger in grade 8, maybe the game's a little, it's more suited in grade 8 for the little guys. What was it like kind of getting acclimated?
I think the one big thing for me, I had Rory Brown, who was my head coach at the time, and because I remember the very first shot I ever took in a basketball game was a 3 at the high school level. And I remember him like subbing me out right away, and he was just like, ripping into me, a little 8th grade kid. He was just ripping into me, just, telling me, that's a bad shot. You can't take that shot. But it was funny though, because after that game, the very next day, I remember like he was just trying to explain to me that I got to figure out a shot that I have a go-to shot, and it has to be somewhere, around the basket. So then we started working on our jump hook. I'd never done a jump hook before that. So once we kind of figured out, a go-to shot, I was repping out a jump hook every single day. It helped me out just because like, I didn't understand like at the time, like the game, is very guard orientated. It's always been like, that's just how it is. And that's the trend it's moving to. Obviously, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't like that, but the trend's moving towards now. That's how it is. So once I figured out, go-to shot, right jump hook, left jump hook, it helped me out, a ton, because now, our guards were able to throw it to me, and I take 1-2 dribbles and just go jump hook, and hopefully it went in. And that's kind of what I did for myself, to try to, get a few buckets here and there. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it was, I didn't understand at the time how guard oriented it was until I, started playing. And then I'd say our best player was, it was a guard that my grade 8 year. I remember that, specifically because he was leading our squad to wins, and, he was our leader in points, whatever it was. And then once I kind of figured out myself, that changed. But like, that's how I kind of, say that process kind of went.
It's funny that you bring that up, because a lot of kids nowadays, that's the first thing they do is they'll start jacking some threes. But if you listen to like Randy Knorr, he played on the national team behind Steve Nash, right? And his thing was, I got to move, I got to counter move. I'm not going to another thing. Like, if you can't stop my move, I'm not even going to the counter move. I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. If you stop my move, I got to counter move. I'm pretty sure you can't stop both of them. And it's like, it's funny that you say that, because I think a lot of kids need to hear that. I think they need to hear, like, get good at one thing, and then you can grow from there.
Definitely.
So you finish grade 8. What kind of happens from there? Give me a quick little run through high school.
Yeah, so right after that, I finished the 8th grade, and then I kind of, played my first real summer of travel ball, and I had played with the provincial team. So I tried out. Someone told me, one of Stoney's friends had told me, you should go play for the regional team, just see what happens. So I ended up doing that. Had a good summer, made the BC team. Did all the tournaments, and then once I came back, and I kind of realized, like, I just want to take this to the next level. So once I'd come back, after that, my grade 9 year, I told myself, I'm gonna make myself a bigger, force in terms of, like, a bigger impact. And I just wanted to be a player where somebody could, throw me the ball at any time, and, a bucket was coming. So that's just kind of how I told, what I wanted to. I was a kid and I wasn't really thinking the game. I was just like, I just want to score, and that's just what I was doing at that time. And then we had made the provincials that year as well. And then grade 10 year, same thing, travel ball. Grade 10 year, same thing, travel ball. And then my grade 11 year was the year where I was like, okay, now we're playing higher level dudes in travel ball. And this is when, my goal, I'm like, at first it was like, okay, I'm trying to get a scholarship to, play at UBC, whatever, SFU. And now it's like, okay, I'm trying to get a scholarship to play Division I basketball. And I remember at the time, a lot of people were, not necessarily knocking on it, but just saying, you have a good thing going for you here. Just, you should stay on, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And once I had kind of set my mind, I'm trying to pick up Division I scholarship, it just kind of, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So just kind of, I rode with it and just played my cards that way.
So a switch hits in your head, and now you're even more focused. So what does that look like? Are you in the gym more? Are you
Definitely. Like I'm in the gym, twice as much. People can ask Stoney. Like I was begging him to open up the gym. Late nights, early mornings, and I'd come in every single day. And at this time, I had met one of my trainers now, who's going to be my trainer. From here on out. I had met, 3 Seed, who's, he was somebody that kind of helped me instill, the idea of hard work in terms of, like, getting to where you want to get to. And once I had figured that out, coming back my grade 11 year, after my grade 11 year, just coming back and having a different mentality. We lost in the provincial finals that year, but I think that also helped, towards my trend of not wanting to feel like that again. So it was a bunch of different things. It was losing, and it was trying to pick up a scholarship that kind of all meshed together and trying to, get a scholarship.
So you're going into grade 12, your 11th summer. I believe you played club and provincial team, which a lot of people couldn't get away with, but you did it. When you didn't get the offers you were looking for, what was that like?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of schools that were, looking at me, and they were like, hey, like, so I had some schools looking at me, and they were like, the first thing they'd say is like, hey, this is our first summer seeing you play. There was, like, I think 6 or 7 schools. The first time they had seen me play was my grade 12 year in the summer. So all they had to go off, was one game. And that's one thing that kind of sucked for me, because, I was thinking, like, dang, like, if I had, I was making excuses in my head. If I had played in the States, it'd have been different. If I had played, maybe on a different travel ball team, it'd have been different, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I figured out, what's the best step I can take for me to put myself on the best stage possible. And, some people were saying, go JUCO, play 1 year at JUCO, and then you pick up those offers. But when I had talked to my family and some other close people in my circle, they were like, if you want to prove to these coaches that, it's not just one game, it's not just one summer, you got to play on the best league possible. So I looked for the best league possible in all of America, and that I found in the NEPSAC. and that's where I'd gone next, playing a year of prep school ball, where the hoops was high level hoops. You got almost 8 to 10, 8 to 12 Division I players per team. So guys coming off the bench are Wichita State and Oregon State and all these big schools. So once I put myself in that position, that helped me out a ton.
Where was that? Where'd you go?
I went to Maine.
Maine. Oh, so all the way in New York.
Yeah.
By there.
Yeah.
So how'd you find that? That's not like something North, Richmond kids.
Yeah.
You don't see too many Richmond kids out there. How'd you find that?
So the first thing I did was I looked, for the best league possible, and that's what I found, the NEPSAC, and the New England Prep School Association, something like that. And once I had figured out the best league, I was like, okay, I'm trying to go to a team where like they'll need me. And I went through every school and I was doing my own research. I went through every roster. And once I had found, a roster that looked like, okay, we only had like 3 or 4 Division I guys that year. And I was like, okay, looks like a roster, where I'll do well. And the coach, the coach was a great dude. I still talk to him to this day. Like, he's a great guy that helped me out a ton. So once I had figured that out and I had gone down there, I knew I made the right choice, because situation was great. Like you got access to the gym, 24/7. They kind of prepare you for the lifestyle of college, which is crazy. Because before I got to college, like outside of the basketball stuff, like I was ready for a lot of the things to come ahead. Like a lot of other freshmen were ready, just because I'd done it the year before. I understood, like, you got to have all these essential things to be ready for college. You got to have this, and this in your room. You got to be able to do this, whatever the case was. I knew that before, just due to the fact of me doing that one prep year.
And then you end up with Mercer. So how does that end up happening? What was the thought process? To get me through the ride?
Yeah, definitely. So my first weekend out there, I had never been in a situation, because I really went in with like 3 or 4 offers. But once I had got to the school, the first weekend, we're just playing pickleball, and I just see like 10, 15 Division I coaches just walk into the gym and sit down and just watch us play. And right after that, I kind of knew, like, I was like, okay, this is the real deal. And once I just started hooping, they had offered me, there was other schools in the mix, but the one thing I knew, I looked at the class that they were signing in. So they were bringing in like 7 freshmen at the time. And I knew that the first year I got there was, we were not going to be very good. Just to the fact that we were going to be a young team. Like, it was going to be almost 8 or 9, 17, 18-year-olds playing. So, but the thing that I had also known is, in 2 or 3 years ago, we could be really, really good. Playing with the group of guys, like that usually never happens. Like having 7, 8 freshmen come in, and then by the time you guys are juniors and seniors, you guys are running through your conferences, because you have 2 years of playing together, 2 years of experience, and all that stuff. So that's just kind of what I was thinking. And the class that we signed in was a really good class, and I knew like the history that they had 2 or 3 years before that. They made a tournament, upset Duke. They made a good run in the tournament. And I was like, okay, this is I'm playing under a really good coach who has experience under Kelvin Sampson, who's a legend at Houston. He's, Bob Hoffman himself is a, big time coach. So once I kind of figured out, okay, this is the place I want to go, I picked up that ended up signing with them. And I got down to that summer, my freshman year, and both the assistants that had recruited me all year, both had left for jobs at other schools, and that's the first time I understood, like, hey, college basketball is a business. Like, it's nothing other than a business. And that's when I kind of first understood that, and even more to after my head coach getting fired almost 8 months later.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it's a definite awakening for sure. So you're staying there, you get on campus, you got all these freshmen, so it's gotta be kind of cool to be around a bunch of guys your age, get to grow with them. What was that time you checked into a game. That had to be kind of cool.
Yeah. So I was playing backup behind a grad transfer big man, and it was, I mean, obviously I learned a lot, and I had was just trying to figure out myself at the time. But I remember the first time I ever checked in, it was the craziest feeling because I had played in front of crowds before, but never like crowds to that size. So I remember like checking in, like being super nervous, just sitting down, waiting for the the horn to ring. So um, it was, it definitely was a great experience. But I think looking back at it now, I think just the preparation that I took for, games, practices, I would have done a lot of things differently just in terms of like mental prep. I think I was worried about the wrong things. Like now it's, it's a different story, but like once I got out there, I was like, I was more worried about looking around and seeing, oh, it's a packed out gym instead of, just little freshman things that you kind of think about. So um, obviously, like you can't go back in time, but if I could go back, that's one thing I definitely switch. But I mean, it was great. Like it was great. No complaints there. I learned a lot. Um, and then we struggled that year due to the fact that we were young. And I mean, the AD thought the best decision was to fire the coach, and I think almost everybody from that freshman class ended up transferring out.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you played a year, you got a little bit of appreciation for what it was like. Now, what's it like going in the portal? So you go in the portal, what happens?
Yeah, so I go in the portal, and within the first like 30 minutes, their schools hit me up. But the one thing I did know is like now it's, I'm doing this process all over again. Now I don't want to make the mistakes that I made, the first time out. So I was just, I was trying to figure out right fit for myself. What's going to be the right fit for, the coaches that are bringing me in. And that's kind of what I was thinking throughout the whole process. So about 4 weeks in, I had a list of, my 5 schools, and every other school I was calling, I was like, hanging up the phone. I was like, I got my list. I'm good. I'm ready to go. And that's when so Utah Valley was like on the bottom of my list at the time. But they were the bottom of my list in terms of like me wanting to go there, but they were first on my visiting list. So they were scheduled up first. So I had just saw like a few days before my visit, Mark Madsen had got the job. And once he had got the job, that kind of, changed things up a little bit for me. So once he had got the job, I had got out there. And once I got out there, he put me through a 30-minute workout that was a pro level workout at the NBA level, which just kind of, changed everything up for me. And like, that's kind of like the first time that I knew, like, this is somebody I definitely want to play for. And I didn't even end up doing my other 4 visits. I ended up signing within like 2 weeks after that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let me pause this here. You want to fix the I think you got some light coming in your face. There you go. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so you end up signing with Utah. You get very excited to play for a guy who's played in the NBA.
Yeah.
But so you have to sit out a year. So that, a lot of kids have just had, well, everybody in Canada this is in America. In Canada, everybody sat out a year just now. So
yeah.
Talk about what that was like for you, because I'm sure you've never done anything like that before, and just having to watch and work, but never actually get to play.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I took away from my sit out year was just, kind of the discipline and dedication that you got to put towards, trying to get better. There was, many, many times throughout the year where I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Just due to the fact that like you're coming in every single day, like you got your morning workouts, and then you're coming back, and then, you're doing extra conditioning, and then you got practice, and then guys are leaving. You see them leaving, they're leaving for games, whatever, they're flying out, and coach is saying, all right, get back in the gym. So like, that's one thing that was tough for me, because I'm like, okay, I'm putting in all this work and it's not being, it's not really, I didn't understand that it wasn't going anywhere at the time. I was like, this is frustrating. Like I'm putting in all this work and I'm not playing. And that's one thing that I kind of ended up, starting to realize, I was like, there's a bigger purpose behind this. And that's kind of what my strength coach was just trying to reiterate to me every single day, that all this work that you're going to put in is eventually going to pay off. And it did. And I think me not trying to waste any time in that year was huge. I think just whatever moment I had, I was trying to get better in some sort of way, whether it was, in the classroom or on the basketball court. And I just kind of dedicated myself to that whole year that I had. Obviously COVID hit, which hurt a little bit, but I think that was like the number one goal that I had.
And so your season starts with your new team, and now you can actually play, and you're a different guy. Let's be honest here. I mean, you're not the same guy you were 2 years ago.
I'm just gonna put this back up here. Hopefully,
yeah. Go ahead.
It works. I'm just in the room.
Okay, so you get going there, and you're a different person. You're not even the same person anymore. Talk about the difference between showing up as a freshman, redshirt, and now it's like, okay, it's time to play, and I'm getting big minutes.
Definitely. So that's the biggest mentality I had coming into the season, because at this point I still had, not a lot of, things to go off in terms of like, I've proved myself. In my head, I'm like, okay, I've proved myself, but like to the world, I haven't proved myself. So it's funny because it's still up in my locker. The preseason, rankings and all that stuff came out. We were ranked, we were picked to finish 7th in the conference, and I was on no preseason polls in terms of like, first team, second team, honorable mention, whatever. And I had, printed out everything, put it on my locker, and every single day, like, I was coming in the gym, that was the first thing I'd see. So, every time before I'm lacing up my shoes, I'm like, this is what I see every single day. And it just kind of remind me going into practice, like, you still have not proved anything yet to anybody. So before every game, every practice, that was on my mind coming in. Like, I have this chip on my shoulder that, like, people don't understand. Like, I'm coming in with this intention, like I'm trying to take everything from everybody. And that's just kind of the mentality I had coming in. So like a lot of people that, were surprised, like there was a lot of people who were surprised, but to me, like, it was just like, the amount of work that I've put in, and the dedication that like I have to this, to this game, like it's not, to me, it's not a surprise, but to, a lot of people, they're like, oh, wow, like, 20 and 20, like it's, obviously it's a big deal, but it's like, to me, it's like, I've repped out that move, thousands and thousands of times. I've repped out that thousands of times. The reason why I got that extra rebound was because, the extra conditioning I did, to chase that down, whatever it was. I think that's one thing that, the mentality that I had coming in, especially to start off the year. And obviously, like once, you're 10, 15 games in, now people know about you. And now instead of being like here on the scouting report, you're number one on the scouting report. And their whole job is to shut you down now. So it's like that's kind of what ended up happening with me in terms of that stuff.
So now you got full attention. You got everybody's attention. So you went from not being on the scout to, okay, we got to shut this guy down. That takes talk. A lot of kids don't take understanding of the mental game. So the mental game for you, you have to find a way to stay resilient. You have to find a way to keep chipping away and keep putting in the work. What's
Definitely.
that like to go from, I'm the top guy they got to worry about to like, I got to do this every night.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I dealt with all year. Like I still, so it was a learning curve for me. I had never, obviously high school is a different story, but like there were teams now at this point who basically were saying like anyone else but you hurt us. Now every time I'm trying to go to the offensive glass, it's not one body hitting me. It's not two bodies. Sometimes it's three guys, trying to hit me as hard as they can. So, that's one thing that I ended up struggling with a little bit, towards the middle of the season, end of the season, just because I wasn't ready, for, teams throwing quick doubles, trying to get the ball out of my hand. And like I was forced to take, a lot of tough shots, whatever the case was. But that's one thing that like, I'm working on this summer, understanding, different reads, where potential doubles are going to come from. Because, next year is going to be the same thing. And it's going to start off right from the first game. So, understanding like if I'm getting double, tripled, understanding where our guys are going to be, making the right play and making them pay essentially. So once our guys hit a few shots and it's like, you can't double or triple me no more. And that's just kind of the mentality that, I had coming in, because, there was a stretch where, I was getting like going, 20 and 20, 20 and 20, whatever it was, taking over 10 shots a game. And then once, the doubles started coming, there were some teams that kept me, under 5 shots, 3, 4 shots, whatever it was. But I tried finding, other ways to, help our team win. So whether it was, grabbing 18 rebounds and, 6 assists, that's what I was trying to do. Whatever it was, make the right play every single time and, play as hard as you can, and good things are going to happen.
No, for sure. And so the plans to go back to Utah Valley, I'm assuming?
As of right now.
Yeah. So your team played some pretty big teams, like you had a good season. You got to play BYU, you got to play Utah, like you played a bunch of teams, you played a couple teams that made the tournament, right? I mean, like, and then obviously you had back-to-back games with Grand Canyon, who had a decent attempt in the tournament. And, it obviously didn't go your way in the tournament, but
definitely.
What now is the biggest thing you got to prep going into your next year, and what's your off season look like?
Yeah, so my off season right now, like I'm doing my, I got a little bit left on my quarantine, but once I'm out, it's just, preparing for coming back and basically being a basketball player that's essentially like I don't want to say unguardable, but just like working on different parts of my game in terms of like I'm coming back and working on my stretch 3, pick and pop stuff, pick and pop game, one dribble drive rip. So now I'm just I'm a problem from different parts of the floor. Coming back like NBA body ready is a big thing. Like coming back with the with the ability to if I were to put my name in the draft, like I'm ready in terms of body wise. So that's probably the first the first couple of things that I'm gonna be working on this summer. And then once we get towards the end of the summer, it's like it's gonna be a lot of mental prep, mentally getting myself ready, understanding that teams know who I am, and it's gonna be a bigger focus on me next year. So our coaches are trying to do the right thing, trying to find the right guys to help us out, finding the right recruits, because at the end of the day, it's a basketball business, and if you can't win, then it's like jobs are on the line. So that's definitely the biggest thing for me this off season. Just coming back as a different player, basically.
Well, and exponential growth, right? So you've the kid that you were in grade 8 wasn't the same kid in grade 11 to 12, first year. Then all that up, and now you got to do it again, and now it's at an even harder level because they're expecting you, right? You had an element of surprise before. There's no surprises anymore. They know.
Surprise. Exactly. And
so
that's
now talk about your coach real quick. So Mark obviously had a pretty cool career. He played with Kobe and Shaq and all these guys. He won championships. What's it been like having a guy who's got all the experience that you're looking for, coaching you every day?
Definitely. I think it's just that's one thing that I think I see myself at an advantage at compared to some other kids. So he's obviously played my position at the highest level. He knows what it's like to be a pro. The way he comes at me every single day in practice. He's tough on me just due to the fact that he knows that like where my potential is, and he knows that where I can be. And for him to have me doing that at my best, he has to come at me the hardest. So I think that's one thing that like I truly appreciate, is him not holding back, because there are coaches that like with your top guys, they don't really go at him, just kind of let him kind of do whatever blah blah blah, as long as they're producing, it's okay. But like for him, it's not even about producing. It's about, trying to get you to the next step possible. I mean, there's been like 6, 7, NBA teams that have hit him up trying to get me to work out in front of him this summer, which, I'm probably going to end up doing. But like he's just been preparing me like for life after college, which is, I mean, you don't get that at a lot of other places. And he's been, huge in terms of like, he has all his little stories of him playing in the league to understanding and explaining different parts of the game. So like, there's so many things that you think you know about basketball, and then once you hear it from a pro, you're just like, wow. And then like you go do what he's telling you to do, and it works, And that's the crazy thing, because people don't understand. Like, people don't get the luxury of playing for somebody who's played in the league. So one example I have is like talking about post defense. He's trying to explain post defense to me. He's like, okay, if you're guarding somebody who's 6'7" and pretty stocky, you got to position yourself like this. If you're guarding somebody who's 7 foot and long, you got to position yourself like this. And if you're guarding somebody, whatever, like this, you got to position yourself like this. So just little things like that. Like you never think that like, the body type, the size of the person matters, how you position your feet, where you position your hands. And that's something small. So like, just him, me trying to be a sponge every single day, absorb what he's telling me, I think is obviously beneficial for myself, and hopefully, we can make a run at a title again and play in the tournament next year.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been, I'll be honest, I didn't see it coming. I watched you play in grade 12. I didn't see it. You were running around in pink shoes. You had, there was no dreads. You didn't have, I mean, like, cornrows. You're a different guy. I watched some of your games this year. There's nothing in common with that guy from back then. And it's cool to see somebody put in the work, because you've clearly, it's obvious. You've been in the gym, you've been putting time, and it's a good example for the younger kids that like, you can have all the talent in the world if you don't put in the work and you don't actually follow the plan and you don't structure it. It doesn't matter how talented you are.
Definitely. I mean, obviously one thing, if I could, say to kids or whatever, like I think really understanding, like making a plan, I think kind of like what you just said is huge. Being able to have something that you can go off every single day and kind of, following that same routine, and just being consistent with it every single day. Because like, as long as you're getting in good work every single day, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like, if you're in the gym and you're BSing for 2 hours, then it's like, you really haven't got better, like I'd rather be in the gym, 45 minutes and I get, 45 minutes of hard work in, compared to 2 hours of me just messing around, just shooting around, instead of, 45 minutes, like I'm, taking game shots at game speed, running up and down, transition buckets, whatever, simulating different things, like just stuff like that. I think, is huge. And a lot of people don't realize that. So, till they get to that pro level, or, before it's too late. So I think that's one thing that's, I think a lot of kids, if they can try to figure that out, then it'll help them out a ton.
Well, you know what? It's not even about necessarily for them about pro. Like there's, some guys have an opportunity to play pro, but some kids need to find a way to get onto their high school team, and some kids need to find a way to get onto a college team, and some kids got to find a way to get onto a university team. And
definitely,
and their ceiling is a little different, but the structure doesn't change. You gotta
exactly.
You got to focus on the details, and it's kind of cool. Now, let me ask you this question.
Yep.
If you could go back in time and give the younger, Fardaws some tips, let's say I could take you back to grade 10 and you could give yourself a little shake and be like, hey, what are you telling them?
The first thing I'm saying is stay away from the McDonald's. I think I tell them, because now knowing myself, I think just understanding that this is a process and like there's eventually a bigger outcome. I think that's one thing that I've struggled with, the last couple of years is I just look at the short-term goal often. I never that's one thing I'm getting better at, is just looking at the long-term goal. And that's, it helps you out a ton, because there were times where like I questioned myself in terms of like all this work and everything I'm doing extra, is it going to be worth it? And in some way, it always is worth it. Like whether it's you're playing a team and you guys are down 3, you're at the free throw line, you got to make 2 free throws, and all that work that you've put in, like you got to trust it. Or it's you guys are down 1, whatever it is, and you guys turn the ball over and you got to get back in transition, and then all that conditioning you put in, it's worth it at that point. So there's so many situations where you can go and see like everything that you do is worth it, whether it's skill wise, conditioning wise, mental prep, whatever it is, whatever the situation is. Just being consistent and understanding that eventually, like whatever you're doing is going to pay off, and not thinking about the short-term goal.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been awesome.
Definitely.
I appreciate it, and good luck with your quarantine.
Thank you. Appreciate it.